All right, you're good. Well, I've got 5:02. We'll call the plan commission meeting to order. We'll start with roll call, please.
Justin,
Here.
Jan,
Here.
David,
Here.
Stephanie,
Here.
Jude will not be here tonight, Crystal,
Here.
and Sonia will not be here. But we have
Okay.
quorum.
All right. Item number 2 is review and approval of minutes from August 20th, 2025.
I wasn't there. Me neither. So you gotta do it.
Well, you, David. Need a motion to approve the minutes. Yeah,
This is David. I am moved to approve the minutes from August 20 meeting.
I'll second that. Any discussion? No? All those in favor say aye.
I.
Opposed? All right. Item number 3 is a public hearing on conditional use permit application by Vernon Health for electric message sign located at 507 South Main Street. And with that, we will start the public hearing. No, Lori, if you want to do an explanation.
Okay, this is for an electronic message sign for Verdant Health. And Chad is here, so he can help me out with the specifics on it. This would be, I believe, replacing the way sign with a electronic sign. Is that correct, Chad?
Yeah, so VMH has done a bunch of, work, obviously there. They're redoing all their signs. They got a name change. So on that corner of, what is that, South Street and Main, their main sign there, they're going to remove and put in a new one with their updated name. And they're asking to include a portion of that sign to be a variable message board. So it went through the sign committee. They obviously, it would have been approved if it didn't have that electronic variable message piece to it. So size and all that's fine. But we had to deny it due to that caveat, right? So that's why it was sent, or that's why they did a conditional use and brought it to you guys to see if you would entertain that. And then obviously it'll go to council from there. So questions from there?
So if it passes here, does it have to go back there or no? I mean,
It would go to council, I believe, right? It always, council gets the last
sure. So
Say.
it doesn't have to go back to,
board.
The sign
The sign,
commission.
no,
No,
nope,
okay.
nope.
Is the new sign the same size as the old one?
yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question for Chad. I don't know our sign ordinance. Do we not permit any illuminated signs, or is it the scale that makes it non-conforming?
No, so illumination, we do typically allow as long as it fits in the parameters. So this is the fact that it's an electronic variable message.
Oh, it'll okay.
Yeah, so they'll be able to change the message and that kind of thing.
But it's static. It's not it's not in perpetual motion, the language, right? It's static.
I was told that there will have different messages on there. So for instance, it might be, let's say, a employee of the month or a new doctor, or it might be
Got it.
an event going on in the city in general, or a special event they maybe have going on. So yes, there will be different messages, but from what I understand is it won't be like every 3 seconds it'll show a different image, or every 10 seconds it'll be. Is that answering your question? Kind
It
of.
does. Yeah, because it's a little different when it's like, Times Square, like a constant rolling message is very distracting for drivers, I believe. But I'm sure there's
Portion of it, though, is just for the public hearing. We'll be discussing the rest of that during the
Oh.
next item.
Thank you.
oh, sorry. Thank you for the clarity.
Yeah.
Thanks.
In my
Let's bring that up again, though. Yeah, so we can talk and I can explain a little more on that
Okay.
when we get to that. Yep. So size, yeah.
So I don't have the exact size of the previous one, but it is larger because the previous one on site is just the wayfinding portion. So we had to make it wider to include the new logo as well as the digital portion of the sign. So it is wider.
So if I remember correctly, and we could put it in your motion or whatever, but the conditional use is not to go beyond what the sign ordinance allows as far as size. And if I remember correctly, I was going to try and review it before I got here, but the conditional use is only on the electronic variable message piece of it, right? And so if you guys were to approve that piece and it goes to council, whatever, they'd still be required. Because we're not doing a conditional use on size per se. We're doing it on the electronic variable message piece. So I would want to confirm that it fits in the normal parameter, and I'd need to know the property length and, you know, times that by 2. There's a calculation that you do, and I don't have that in my head to confirm the size, but I do remember it was going to be bigger. But I feel like that wasn't the problem per ordinance. Again, it's just the variable message piece of it.
Typically, when we design, we look at ordinances prior, and the electronic portion was the only part that we interpreted to be out of ordinance.
Good. All right, for the public hearing, any members of the public have anything they wish to talk about? Good. Yep, that's the public hearing now. So come on up. We need yes, we need you to state your name, address, and then, well, I don't think we typically keep it too limited. Yep, there's a little person. If you press that, it'll turn green. There you go.
It's green, okay.
Yeah, Go
Um,
ahead.
I'm Vernie Smith, 540 East South Street. This is different than what I was envisioning. I did talk to Chad a little about this. The sign they're talking about is not the one I thought they were going to be talking about. But you're talking about basically it's the wayfinding sign on the corner of East South and Main Street. It's designed to be currently a directional sign so people know where to turn to get in the hospital. Now, you have another freestanding sign in front of the hospital near where the old entrance was 50 years ago, a small freestanding sign. And that one has a changeable copy portion of the sign. So I came here thinking that sign is the one that you ought to be, all you could do is change. There's a Jim Greeley sign. It's a good sign. It's a good condition. I looked at it yesterday. I thought, well, you just change the plastic name on it and continue to use your changeable copy. And I don't think you need a digital sign. So now this is different because now you're taking a sign that is a wayfinding sign, tell you to get into the hospital, and now you're distracting it by adding basically advertising, and you don't need it. So that's my opinion on this. And I'm glad to hear the design committee did turn it down based on that. But they're just there for it basically to make a recommendation, you know, and they've gone through that process here. So that's my opinion on this. I was thinking of one other thing, and I just want to say, I think it's relevant. I was remembering as I was walking over here, a drive I took to Texas in 2006, and I went through Enid, Oklahoma I took intentionally US 281 because I was going north-south through Enid. And I remember being struck by how much commercialization I didn't really see in it. I saw signs and I saw billboards. And I thought of that here. I'm sure there are nice places in that community, nice residential areas, but I didn't see them. So presumably the main stretch through town, the north-south stretch, had all, and another one, had all been over commercialized. So I've thought about that with Viroqua here. And when you're driving through Viroqua, a lot of it is commercial, and there's been a transition on the commercial. But when you get to this end of town, to the south end of town toward the hospital, then it becomes residential. The hospital kind of fits into that, the church across the street. And I think this kind of thing degrades the drive through Viroqua. I think it's unnecessary. I think you hospitals don't need all the advertising that you guys are doing, that I see on your billboards and so now I'm really against this. I thought I was going to come here and I was going to hear about wanting to replace that smaller sign in front of the hospital. It sounds like you're not touching that. So that's my opinion. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? Yeah. Yep.
So I'm Rebecca Schott. I am a resident here in Viroqua. I am also the marketing and public relations manager. for Vernon Health. And so I am the person to hear your concerns and understand that that's not our intent with this sign. So with the replacement of the wayfinding sign on the corner, our first and foremost was wayfinding and directional for our EMS and emergency systems. That was my first and forefront. And we understand that there's a lot going on that corner now, especially with the lights in that and the control box as well too. So that was never our intention. We also looked at, when we looked at this digital sign, the integration to Amber Alerts or other emergency and natural disaster messaging board that this could help aid the city in. And so those are things that we had considered when we had done this, along with getting information out. So last night, Vernon Health had Family Fun Night, which was a free public event to our community members, and we served a meal. You might have saw lacrosse signs digital on the corner there, but help to get information. We all know that 14 is a highly trafficked area. So it's a great place for people to understand what is also going on in the community. So I hear your concerns. I agree with you. I wholeheartedly, take those into heart as the public relations manager and the person who would be helping to manage the content on this. So I encourage people to bring that. I want you to know that there is not the remodification in the design. We did specifically call out emergency and urgent care in the colors on this sign as well too. So that way it's a national industry standard. And you'll see that across our campus too, to help aid in, this is how you get to ER and this is how you get to urgent care.
Thank you.
Can I ask a
Nate,
question?
yeah.
So what,
Sure.
Rebecca, what will the messaging be? So besides the wayfinding, I see that large picture of doctor, nurse, some sort of medical personnel. What will that space be used for? Just give me a snapshot of it. As you drive by, what are we seeing?
Yeah, so you could see anything from, so we have Daisy and B nominations. That's a prime example. So people in our community, when they receive exceptional care, they can nominate a nurse or a staff member to receive an award. And so those are things with going on within the hospital that we want to highlight our people. So you might see a picture of the Daisy or the B winner with like a congratulations. I don't intend to overcomplicate this sign at all. Things like Family Fun Night. Come join us for a free meal in the evening, maybe breast cancer awareness. We're working on Suicide Prevention Month is the month of September. How do we bring awareness and resources to our community that's helpful and educational while connecting them to our people and our organization who could potentially help? Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Any other, Nate, did you have something?
So whenever we look at this conditional use, we can always talk about putting conditions on the use, right? Like that's part and parcel of what we're talking about here is like, if you allow it, what conditions do you need to put on it? A couple of thoughts I had by looking at that I know have come up before is the degree of illumination, right? And I think that, there's a lot of conversation about dark sky. There's a lot of conversation about how distracting is it? How bright is it? Being in a residential area, things like that. Do we have any idea of the illumination and how that may pertain to like standard illumination, especially in areas that, I mean, we get complaints about it's too bright, right? Throughout the night, not particularly your sign, but throughout the neighborhood. So I think that's something the planning commission would want to consider is like, how bright is this thing? And what's the possibility of people being really frustrated with it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a concern that everyone has. And even as a sign company, we look at a lot of the more cost-effective manufacturers for these signs don't have dimming capability. We use Daktronics almost predominantly. They're the industry leader, and it has an auto dimming built into it. So it'll be at its brightest during the day when the sun is highest in the sky so that you can still see it. And then it'll dim down to less than what a street light or a floodlight is that someone has shining on their house or whatever it may be. It'll be less than that at night. So that's not offensive to drivers as they drive by. As far as like a nit output, the max is 8,000. I would have to genuinely look up what the maximum for a streetlight would be because that's rated in a different system, not necessarily nits.
What are nits? Sorry.
I don't even know what the acronym's for, but light is measured in like multiple different ways. So lumens, nits, yeah.
I have a clarifying question. Could we get confirmation whether will the monument sign that was referred to by the member from the community, will that monument sign remain?
It will not.
So this will replace, I don't know if it's replacing, this will be the only sign essentially for the hospital then, potentially.
Put this up for you. Rebecca,
Yes.
Because this is.
So that monument sign on the corner, this sign is replacing that sign. The sign I believe the gentleman was referring to was the medical office building sign.
Manual reader board sign at the MRI.
Yes, that manual reader board sign will be removed with the building expansion for our MRI addition.
I see. That one will leave.
That one will be removed, correct?
Thank you.
Anything on the south side of the building?
There'll be a projecting wayfinding sign off if you look back because of where that Quick Trip sign is. You can't see what's currently there a lot of the time, so it'll project off of where that current one is. That's already been approved.
Project towards Main Street?
Project off the building, so it'll just be, yep.
But which direction?
So it'll be perpendicular to the road, so people can read it from both sides.
To the west.
So lane west, yeah.
Will that be illuminated?
Yes, it will be, and that's been passed by the board already.
Thank you.
It's almost like sign we see in the downtown in general. What do we call them? It's not projecting.
They're
sign.
projecting signs,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, where it just means it's sticking out from the building, so you can see it from both sides.
Yep. Not too far. All right.
Thanks. What's that? Yeah, any other public input? All right, we'll close the public hearing at 5:19. And we will move on to item number 4, which is discussion with possible action on conditional use application for Vernon Health. Go ahead.
So, a little bit more of what you were saying, Nate, about the, strength of the light at different times of day and, concern with night sky and things like that. I believe the signs that we've passed already has guidelines for a certain time of day where the illumination of the sign has certain restrictions already. Is that true? Lori?
I don't have them with me, but usually when we're doing these signs, there's the listing of that it cannot like scroll, it cannot do, there's a
Can't
whole
flash.
list of them, and we usually add that in if this is approved on the actual permit that we give to them. So if there's anything in addition to those common ones that we've done, that's when you want to add that in.
So in the ordinance, it does spell out a lot of those concerns, like no flashing, it can't be higher than 22 feet. There's some of the things that Lori had mentioned. DOT rules fall into play because it's state highway, things like that. But to back up what Lori just said, those are automatic, but you can make it more robust or make it stronger and add conditions to it, right? So, whatever those would be, I guess. So does that answer that?
Yeah, I just remember that there were parameters already, and that if we, with the size of the sign, to make sure that it dims and, that's pretty standard now with lit from within signs. So I just wanted to make sure that we had that language in there, and it looks like that's pretty standard for us.
This would be considered just outside of the historic district.
I believe it's South Street, right,
Yeah.
Nate? Does that sound right?
Here,
Yeah.
just want to be sure that.
Yeah, no,
that's
I'd
what
have
it
to
is.
see where it's turning.
Thank you.
Good question. I'm pretty sure it's just outside. So just a couple things, if I may, Mayor, so when the sign board met, because they had some other sign changes, you heard about the projecting sign, there was some other wayfinding pieces that they were talking about. We just had a meeting yesterday, I think, to discuss another wayfinding sign in the back parking lot. So once they get back in there, there's a lot happening back there, right? And so in that, we talked a lot about, it's a pretty important building. A lot of buildings are, but when you're talking about the ER, we wanted to make sure we were thinking those things through, right? And so the beginning of the hospital, depending on which direction you're coming from, boom, right there, turn here. Just wanted to make that statement. We spent a lot of time talking, I guess, about the importance of emergency and wayfinding in that situation. So yeah, is that?
Yeah, it looks like it terminates actually at looks like it terminates at Terhune.
Yep. So.
I have a question about the brightness. I guess it has to do with how the limits are established. I assume that there's some sort of a number of nit or lumens kind of brightness in the night. But like, I have to remember, I could be wrong, but correct me, that we had this conversation when Nelson's wanted to put in their illuminated sign. And that was when they would dim at night. And I have had a couple times where I drove by at night and thought, geez, that's still really bright. You know, I don't know what those numbers are. I don't know what the ability to go back later and say, can we get it dimmer at night? Or once we say, you know, how much confidence do we have that the number we're going to agree to is actually as dim as we'd like it to be?
That's a good question. Can I ask the Lacrosse? So do you know those settings that are built in, daytime, nighttime thing? Does that follow suit with like DOT rules and things? Because I know they have some rules in place of too flashy, too bright, you know, safety issues on state highways. Do you know if that I would assume that it's got to follow those rules.
Gotta hit the microphone.
Sorry. I don't know if this will help with your question, but see what he's got.
So yes, they follow all those rules that DOT sets. They even take into consideration the dark skies communities, and they have built into their software, if you need to go lighter or anything like that, they can set different standards. As far as Nelson goes, that's an Optech unit. We did not sell that, so I can't speak to whether that actually has one built in, but every single Daktronics ones does.
Good. Sorry. Thank you.
I think I get what you're saying, David. I mean, ultimately, to say that this is dimmable, don't worry about it, I think is sort of what you're maybe wrestling with. I think it would be a lot.
What parameters there are for going back later? If somebody just subjectively says, this seems bright to me, and they say, well, you approved these numbers, is there still some room to have it be adjusted later? And by what metric would that be?
Well, it feels like we almost need a little more technical information than we have here tonight too. I feel like I don't have a very clear picture given what we've been told.
I think to answer your question on the last one, David, if Nelson's came forward and on their conditional use permit is like, it will be dimmed at night, and we have reason to believe it's not dimming at night, it would be outside of the conditional use permit because it's just not happening. Now, if your question is, it's not dimming enough, that's where they're saying, yeah, but we're dimming it. And it's not dimming enough for you, but the council approved it and they didn't put any hard numbers on down to how many NITs or lumens it had to go is where we lose teeth in our conditional use permit. So, I mean, that's what you're saying.
Well, there's a sign committee, right? I haven't been involved with that. Would it make sense to have a condition in there? It's like, if the sign committee agrees that the dimming is not as much as we'd hoped, they have the authority to go back and say, please turn it down further. That's all I'm asking, just some sort of mechanism to address it. We're not going to know what those numbers mean, you know,
Right.
in advance.
We don't have anything in place that we'd have to change the ordinance for one, right?
Okay.
And the sign board doesn't have authority per se to do anything beyond approving or denying.
Okay.
Originally, it would come down to potentially a public safety issue. And if police fire deemed it a problem and it was a safety issue, you'd have to be able to back that up in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
I suppose you could go after it in that way. The trouble with some of those, and that's with conditional uses too, it's like, well, it might be too bright for you, it might be too bright for me, but it's not too bright for those two. So it's like who becomes the deciding factor of it's still too bright? You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think the only way we could do it is become that's really educated on to say this is the highest you want it. Spell that out in your ordinance or put that in every conditional use. It's this lumens or, nits or whatever, period, right?
Yeah.
And I think that would be the way to move forward, but you'd have to find that information, right?
I think on some conditional uses, you've also put times on
Could,
them
could,
as well.
or hours of operation, which is weird for the hospital because ER is open 24/7. But, as far as the variable message, yeah, you could say that piece is only on from sun up to sundown or whatever.
I also wonder if, is there an accumulation of brightness? In other words, like, I'm grateful to see that this sign is located a bit away from Quick Trip's sign, which I think that's one that we approved maybe last year or the year before. And also I think we put that in the conditional use because that we didn't want to allow them any kind of scrolling language. Like they could adjust it just for, as their prices changed. And I recall, I don't think we put a quantitative value on it, but we did say certainly that it had to be not obtrusive or not a nuisance to the surrounding neighborhood, right? To the surrounding households. That at night it had to be turned down. If the hospital sign were nearer the Quick Trip sign, does that brightness accumulate, right? Does that make sense? Does it become even brighter because there's so much happening on that intersection? I'm grateful that maybe in this situation we don't have to worry about that because this sign will be moved. The perpendicular sign is going to be kind of at that intersection, and I understand it will need to be illuminated first of all because of emergency services. So in some ways, the hospital has their own little category, obviously. But also, because Quick Trip sign is illuminated there, right? It would be lost. So I guess I think the sign committee, do we look at kind of we don't want businesses competing with each other by having brighter and brighter signs, right? So also, I guess some prioritization on public safety, as you said, but then also I think the hospital does have more compelling interest to have some illumination than maybe some other businesses as well. And then my personal opinion, the area of I'm inclined to be supportive of this because I think other than, the wayfinding illumination is obviously important. The part that apparently is not conforming is that piece that might change. I'm grateful to hear it's not like on a loop and it's not going to be rapid. And I know the DOT wouldn't allow that anyway, but I'm not sure. I like the idea of having like a digital community bulletin board. Frankly, I could see like during COVID or just other times where it would have been really helpful to have like public health information shared somewhere. I can see the benefit to the community having that, not just the hospital. I see it as broader than marketing or advertising, if you will. I think there's some value there. I don't think you need to see it at night. I don't think after 10 or 11 p.m. we need to see what's on there, is my humble opinion. But unless it's an Amber Alert or something, I agree. But I think I can see some value of having something there that could serve a broader public good. So I would be inclined to be supportive with conditions for something like this.
So if I may just kind of add to what she just mentioned, if you were to put a limitation on it for timing or whatever, if it ended up being an emergency message or something like that needed to go out there, we can just do that, right? We would ask them to turn it on and put out this message for us or whatever, be it an Amber Alert or, whatever. So I kind of like maybe that thought, maybe. Just know that if we needed to, we'd have them turn it on after hours, and it is what it is for an emergency purpose or whatever. So could be an option.
Okay. I just want to recognize the comments that were made earlier about just that, and it's been said now since I have been thinking about it, so it's not really advertisement, and if it's in that sense, if we're talking about a message coming in the context that Stephanie just mentions, but I do think that might warrant us to put a condition going forward. If we're gonna push it up to the council, that's the condition is that it's a certain kind of message, or, I mean, as a really important wayfinding sign, there should be nothing that's taking away from where's the emergency place where I turn into the hospital. So, if we can figure out, how to word a condition or a recommendation for a condition on what kind of messaging or how often it changes, or what we're doing there. I'm less inclined to worry about the brightness because it is the hospital, and that it's really important for it to stand out in a certain kind of a way. Knowing that there are already a little few parameters about it dimming down after a certain time of the day already. So that's it. I'm on board.
Anybody else have anything? I'm just trying to think through. I would assume, and this is just this is probably not a very inexpensive sign. So I would assume that if the hospital doesn't have the opportunity to utilize it to some of their desires, it might not be something they're interested in doing. So like the messaging she was talking about early on, I think makes sense. And I think it's nice to be able to highlight some of those people because, and it is it's still a very well designed sign that can still be used for wayfinding and that sort of thing. But I worry if we make it too restrictive, they may not do it at all. Then we would lose the benefit of having it as a community asset too. So I don't know if the hospital would be agreeable to the timelines or those kinds of things where maybe it would shut off at 11 o'clock at night and come back on at 6 in the morning kind of a thing, or those types of things, or because I think having it on beyond sundown, I mean, there's a lot that happens here in the wintertime. It's dark at 5 o'clock. A lot of folks would benefit from being able to see the general message in the off time. So I guess that's my perspective. I think, in the interest of them being willing to be good community partners and letting us use it for emergencies, or if they have an emergency kind of a message they want to put out in the off hours, but letting it be on during the designated hours, whatever we choose to designate. And then as far as the brightness, I think if we'd have to change the ordinance to designate a brightness level. It can't be subjective that, again, and no disrespect to David, but if David thinks it's too bright and I don't think it is, how do we wrangle that? So I think and that's probably not something that needs to be addressed in this particular one, but maybe the council in general wants to revisit that ordinance to make sure that the limits are low enough to meet what they're trying to achieve with some of the dark sky stuff and those different things. Just a thought. Do you have something, Nate?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with David. I think if you are going to put restrictions on it from a light standpoint, like having a measurement that you base it off of and just saying it cannot be, once it gets past dusk, it cannot be higher than this, period, and make your programming do it or the sign can't be there. And if anybody ever fights about it, we can do some measurements and say, yeah, the sign is not in compliance. It's clear as day. You need to dim it, right? I think that's where you're talking about, like, and you can make that condition as part of what we're doing here tonight, right? You can say this sign based on where it's at and the size of it and the fact that it is next to wayfinding signage, you could ask it to be dimmed. Right.
But I don't think we know the dim to what, right? Exactly. So I don't think we can make that
goes back to
connection
what
tonight.
Crystal said about where we're missing some technical information here in order to make. But is that getting to what you're getting at, David? Of like, we need to pick a number.
Well, I was thinking that, not thinking I really wanted to insist on it, but just wondering about it. But it occurs to me that also it might just, whoever established the dark sky standards, those have numbers built in. seems to me we could probably trust those if it's in the ordinance automatically, or we need to state it as long as it meets the dark skies limits, that might be fine too.
The other thing I was questioning on this that could be is the size of the variable message sign. Like it is it is a larger area than the wayfinding signage, right? And I don't know if that's something that the group or the council will pick up either of, yep, you can have a variable message board or an electronic sign, but we're not going to let you have it be that big, right? Like bring it back a little bit, because it's not only in terms of how bright it is, but how much of it there is, right? And so
Doesn't our ordinance have a percentage sign, or is it unclear?
It does in another part. I don't know if you got the whole thing. There's a. No, you're fine, you're fine. I believe it's 25% of the whole sign. Yeah, so in a commercial district, electronic variable message is allowable, D and E. So size of electronic variable message portion of the sign shall be limited to 25% of the entire sign, not including the sign supports. Right. So therefore,
it can't be within.
right. And that was actually, to be honest, that was something that wasn't thought of when we talked at the sign board. Even, I mean, we did deny it, obviously, but Bernie and I, when he talked to me a couple days ago, we talked about that, and it's like, yes. So technically, yes, you could say scale it back.
Is the messaging board on both sides, I would assume? Yeah. Yes.
And the wayfinding's reinforced in of multiple ways, isn't it? So it's on the other corner of the facade is the I'm gonna get my directions wrong, but is there imprints? Will it be in the pavement as well? Are there other ways that the wayfinding is reinforced on the campus, such that maybe that? Although I agree, if the ordinance says 25% is the max, then obviously we're gonna talk about that, right? But is it that it didn't need to take up this whole sign because the wayfinding component is already reinforced elsewhere?
So if you turn off Main Street, you see this wayfinding sign, you turn off Main Street, you go down to Center Street. I believe there's another wayfinding there to get you to turn south again, heading towards the hospital. And then they did just ask yesterday to have a smaller one, I believe, out kind of in front of the emergency room entrance. So there is kind of, it walks you to it, right? So it's kind of a roadmap to get back in there. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but there are
It
other.
does, yeah, okay. It's a piece of a broader network of wayfinding, in other words.
Correct.
I'm a little concerned about not this project per se, but any conditions that we would apply if we're feeling like we're moving somewhere positive and we want to apply some conditions. Unless the hospital has different zoning than the rest of that area, like I don't know if we have institutional zoning there or anything, but I'd be mindful of establishing precedents. I don't know if I'd be so flexible in granting a conditional use for other places. So I don't know if there's a for me, I'd feel a little better if our conditional approval or recommendation to council, or however we might do that, definitely reinforces the public good component of this, or just my 2 cents. I'd probably feel less likely to be excited about a big superstore getting a sign like this with a message that's just, something like apples are on sale or whatever, right? Like, so having that public good component to it, I think would be prudent to include in our conditional use.
And I get what you're saying there. I don't think we can add conditions to this particular sign with a conditional use. We can't add something that broad to it. I think we have to take each one of these on an individual basis. And
Right. But I think helping define it a little would help us from maybe being tightened, being restricted by precedents, potentially. Although conditional use, the whole point of it is working against precedents, right? But I could see another commercial use perhaps saying, well, you approved it here, why can't we have it as well, right? So I think, but I hear what you're saying there, yeah.
And that's, yeah, each one is looked at individually. So I think that is the safeguard there.
So Chad, just with regard to the sign, so the portion where the doctor or nurse is
Yep.
that's the portion that has to be 25% or less, right?
Correct.
Okay, the remainder of it, the wayfinding stuff, that's not variable. That's
Correct.
static, right?
Correct.
So the way I'm seeing it is that this sign from the get-go doesn't meet the ordinance because roughly I would suspect that variable portion of it is at least 35 to 40% of the sign
I'm
mass.
thinking 35-ish, yeah.
Yeah, when you remove the brick
Yep.
monument itself, the structural part, so they would have to come back and bring us something, period, because it's just not, it's not there yet.
Right. Well, right, and you could have them bring it back, or you could just say, hey, you know, this is, to get it, this is what you have to do.
Right.
And then if you wanted me to look at it, be like, yep, it's down to 25% or whatever, have at her. You've got your conditional use approved or whatever, so.
Because it can be approved here and then it has to go to council yet anyway. So, right,
Correct.
so
So they could bring a fresh drawing to
Right.
council even.
Yep, we can say
absolutely.
we approve it based on these conditions. They go back
Yep.
and they'll bring those conditions to council.
But also the opposite is true, right? Because they are asking for a conditional use. We could approve it even though it exceeds 25% because we already are exceeding or potentially approving something that's outside of the ordinance.
No, the conditional use
It's
component.
only for the,
for
okay,
written in the ordinance, right? So messaging board 25% rule is part of a condition in the conditional use component of the ordinance.
okay, thank you. Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, yes.
So the ordinance specifies base conditions, and then this group can come in over the top of that and say, in addition, those base conditions,
Right.
this, and this.
Well, and yeah, and the interesting part is they're prohibited, right? It says that in the ordinance, they're prohibited, but yet
Right.
there's things in the
Right.
ordinance that say what it would have to be if it wasn't prohibited. So
Right.
then the conditional use kicks in. Well, the city could give them a conditional use to have it, and then it kind of falls back to the,
Right.
you know, so it's just a really weird, it's a fun time.
So just a quick design thought, thinking about the 25% point and Jan's concern about the primary thing being the emergency and urgent care signs. If they just shrunk that down and extended the emergency and urgent care thing all the way across, it may well, fix both those problems. It's down to 25% and leaves those primary messages really dominant. I mean, we don't need to nitpick like that, but it just occurs to me that might be a nice
Mhm.
fix.
Jan?
We ready to make a motion?
Well, are we? I saw you writing down over there, so I wasn't sure if you were sometimes you
I
do that when you're
just-
crafting.
No,
a
I
motion.
I just was wanting to get everybody else's perspective.
Sure. We're ready for motion anytime. If the discussion is done, certainly a motion would be in order.
Okay, I'm gonna try it. With Lori's friendly amendments, please. I make a motion to recommend to council that the Vernon Health sign with the change for the ordinance of 25% for the messaging is fulfilled, that we accept the conditional permit or something like that. Lori, help me.
To recommend approval of the sign with a change to 25% of messaging area. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so hold on that for a second, because I want to know, do we need to add the dimming part to follow the if it's in the ordinance to dim already, or is that recommendation of a
Yeah,
difference.
It is say degree to the use of the sign if after normal business hours, which is 10 PM to 6 AM, limited or minimal use is preferred. Examples would be static display, time and temperature, etc.
So I
Before you
don't have
guys
to
keep going, why don't we
say
get a
Need to
second?
get a second to that motion before you discuss.
I was.
I think she's
was
still
gonna
Okay.
add,
crafting.
But I don't,
Okay.
but I don't think we have to craft anymore because it's in the ordinance. So that's it.
Right,
That's
so we have a motion. Is there a sec, Nate? Yes, is there a second? Second that, Kenny. I'll second that. So we've got a motion, a second. Now, is there any more discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
I,
I,
Opposed? All right, that passes. Thank you very much. Item number 5, public hearing on conditional use permit application for property located at 610 North Center Avenue to allow a residential dwelling in a B2 district. Again, this is a public hearing. We'll open the public hearing at 5:48. Any members of the public here that wish to speak to this, now would be the time.
This one is basically, it's from Ethan Pedretti. Wishing to purchase a home that is actually owned by Dan Heberlein. And it is actually in a B2 zone. And under the conditional uses, this is kind of an odd one because it was a residential home. And once it was in the B2 commercial district, it follows the conditional use where it would be a dwelling. So it's kind of like looking at it backwards. And in order for him to get the loan, they want to state that they have a conditional use to allow them to get financing. Am I following that correctly, Chad?
Yep. So it's a technicality, basically. It's required by his lender to have this conditional use so that everything's spelled out good. So it's the grandfather clause, right? That house has been there. It's always been there as a residential. City doesn't care, right? But due to the way the ordinance is worded or whatever, they're asking that we give them a conditional use saying, yes, this house can be there. And again, like Lori said, it's kind of backwards, right? Like if someone wanted to put a business there, you could do it all day long. If that was a vacant lot and they wanted to build a house there, then yes, there would be for sure a conditional use needed. So again, it's more of a technicality to help this individual out to be able to finish the process. So I see no reason why, right? It's already being used as a house. It will continue to be used as a house. This is just to help them get through it. So my suggestion would be get it done, make it happen.
And it is a house.
It is a house.
It's not a commercial property that was
Correct.
retrofitted to be a house. It is a home.
Right,
Yes.
so it's right here, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
as Chad was talking about, the red area is the B2 district, and so I think when I spoke to Chad earlier today, he's like, well, it's already a legal non-conforming use, right? It doesn't conform to the zoning anymore, but it was there way before the zoning changed, so it's a legal non-conforming use, but I think as Chad told me, the bank wants the conditional use because it now sits in a B2 district, so.
Yep, which makes sense. It just cleans things up for them. And
Anything else for the public hearing? All right, at 5:51, we'll close the public hearing and we'll move on to item. I did when I started. Yep. Item number 6, discussion with possible action on conditional use application for property at 610 North Center Avenue.
And this is Crystal. I'd move that we grant the conditional use permit application for the property located at 610 North Center Avenue to allow a residential dwelling in a B2 district.
I'll second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
I,
Opposed? All right, item number 7 is a public hearing on conditional use permit application by Computer Professionals Unlimited of America for electric message sign located at 1222 North Main Street. And with that, we'll open the public hearing. Any members? Well, Lori, go ahead.
Okay, this one is for the New Business Computer Professionals Unlimited of America. Their retail provider, computer technology. This is actually another one where it is owned by Spanky. And he has given his approval or to allow the conditional use because these permits are supposed to be done by the owner. So he was contacted and he gave his approval to go forward with the conditional use. So it is, again, this one is for a digital sign, so it did go to sign board and they denied it and brought it back to them. So now I'll send it over to Chad for more information on this one.
So do you have a picture of that one, Nate? No, no, do you have like you had for VMH up there?
A sign.
Yeah.
The proposed sign.
Yeah. Thank you. Don't go there. All right. So very similar to VMH, right? Same concept. The fact that the signboard can't approve them or whatever. The overall footprint of the sign is okay, but we just got done talking about the 25% rule. As you can see, this is even closer to probably 85%, give or take. Aside from that, I don't know what else to add to it, but the setbacks will need to be followed. And I believe the overall size of the sign itself physically is okay. It's just the electronic variable piece of it that would need the conditional use, and we're going to have the same concern as far as the 25%. So I think that's all I've got.
Did say that it was going to be a 3x6 digital sign rather than the 4x8 that's actually in the picture.
So that'll help. That'll help some for sure.
I'm sorry, can you come up and talk to the microphone? We have a member of the commission that's online, so they can't hear if we're not on our mics.
Also, the structure itself that's only a similar sign. It had the details in the original layout, and we were gonna it's gonna be designed like the building itself. So there will be a roof over the top of it that kind of extends over the top for any skyward lighting or anything. There will be none of that. It's gonna just look like the building that we are in itself. And the sides of it and top and stuff, it may or may not be the 25%, which can be adjusted, but that is only an idea of what it looked like when I originally filed the application.
Okay. Questions, thoughts?
Yes, I went over there and looked and I was surprised at how small this building is. It's very tiny. And their entryway is on the side, so it makes sense that they would want the sign there. I just wondered about the size of it.
Right. David?
Are there some, I should know this from our last conversation. Are there some limitations built into the existing ordinance about motion and frequency of change of the imagery?
Yeah.
Is that already built in?
Yep.
Okay, so if it's following that, that's kind of by default.
Right.
And Laura, you said it's really 3x6, not the example of 4x8 in the picture. Is that what?
In his packet or whatever he had, the current building would provide a skyward shield for the light to prevent or minimize upward light. It'll also be a smaller version of the sign. It'll be 3x6 digital sign rather than the 4x8 that's in the picture.
But it meets the sign size to building ratio, Chad?
Your mic's not on.
Do you know what your lot line dimension is? Or can you measure that for me, Nate, quick? 50? Okay. I like I said, I don't have it in my memory or whatever. So if you can double check that, Nate. So 66 feet or less, you can have up to a 40 square foot sign. It can be as high as 12 feet. So that's kind of the gist. If it's more than 60, maybe it's 68, I can't see. You can get up to 100 square foot. So we'll have to see what that length is for the property line.
It looks, oops, sorry. I was measuring the large house to the south.
So that'd be like a 4x10. Overall sign though, right? Not
Sure.
just the message or
board,
whatever.
Right.
The whole structure of it.
Yeah, I mean, somewhere between 45 and 50 feet is what it's coming out to be. I would,
So it'd be at that 40 square foot mark.
Sure.
What's the overall size? You said you shrunk it. So what's the overall size, Lori? I guess
Sorry, it was a 3x6.
the whole thing though, the whole structure, does it give you that dimension? I was unaware that it got shrunk after the signboard looked at it.
Three by 10.
Yeah, 8x8 structure, 3x10 concrete slab, 8 feet tall, 8 feet long, 12 to 16 inches wide. Total square footage of the sign is 64 square feet.
So yeah, it's too big overall then. Nope.
So when I went and dropped the application off the day at the fire station, the lady at the office told me that because of its location, it would be under the qualifications of the 100 square feet, not the 40. Because of the size, for some reason, it doubled the width of the property in that particular area. And because I asked her about that, and she says, well, no, not in that location. It's actually more up there because of the particular location, like where the dealership's at, and it's because I was basing it off of the guidelines, and she said, no, that's not right for that address. It should be this, not that. And she went and checked with somebody and came back and she says, yes, that's what it is.
So the double part typically is for the building signs. I don't know if that was where the confusion came in. I can't speak for what he's talking about per se. But then it's the dimensions of the building frontage, not the street frontage. So if the building's 30 feet, it's 60, right? Double it, but,
Your application asks for both, though.
I understand. Yep. So yeah, I don't know what to add to that. I can just tell you what it is.
can we
Nate?
get clarification on what the ordinance will allow?
For the overall sign.
Yeah, so
So, yep,
are we
it's-
pretty clear that because the frontage is 50, the sign has to be less than 40 square feet?
66.
Well, yeah, so it's flat out if it's north of 850 North Main Street, which it is. If your lot line, your street frontage is 66 feet or less, the maximum sign size is 40 square feet. Yep, correct. Now, if it was higher, anything over above 60 to 100, it's 100 square feet. And then if it's over 150 square feet, you can go up to 150 square feet. Or yeah. So it's all relative, right? Or yeah. So I don't know.
So I guess, I mean, how this typically works is in this particular situation, based on the information on there, then we would just most likely have to deny the conditional use because outside of what's allowed, and he'd have to come back with an updated plan and a new application.
Could you
Nate?
do the same that you did with VMH and give an opportunity to essentially remedy the issue, like recommend it up with necessary changes to size?
You guys can do whatever
Right, so
you
I'm just,
decide you want to do. on
Not-
that.
not
'Cause It
that-
has to go to council anyway for another public hearing regardless. But it all depends upon what your recommendation is. You could deny it, you could do, say conditionally approve upon these changes. So it's kind of up to however you guys want to handle it.
So you'd mentioned that you shrunk the sign, not the whole structure, but you shrunk the sign. Am I okay to do this or no?
We're still in the public hearing
Yeah,
part of it,
so
sorry.
I guess let me-
Confirmation stuff or okay, go ahead.
Yeah, because he can speak when we get to the agenda item, I guess. Well, if there no other members of the public have anything, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Do you have something, Bernie? Go ahead.
Again, Verney Smith, 540 East South Street. My reading of the ordinance is that the 50-foot frontage does govern the size of the sign, which would be 40 square foot. And so it's, the picture, which I understand is kind of a general representation, it's not intended to be exactly what you're proposing. One thing I'd argue, if I wanted to be real difficult about this, I'd begin to say, well, is that masonry? I would include that. You're putting a sign in the middle of a big masonry structure. I would say that's getting bigger than the allowed size. I want to just give some, explain kind of why the percentage is in the sign ordinance. The idea was so that a sign isn't all changeable copy or all electronic. It was intended to be static, and the digital portion or the changeable copy portion is intended to be subservient or secondary to the overall sign. And the reason you put these you put limitations on freestanding signs, when you think about a contribution to sign clutter, freestanding signs is really it. The buildings are already there. So the idea is to space the freestanding signs, put some reasonable height and size limitations and setbacks. That's really important from side property lines. And our ordinance does something which I think is really valuable, and I don't see an issue with this particular application, is the side setback from the neighboring property. The height is not supposed to exceed the setback. So if you have a 8-foot sign height, it's got to be 8 foot from the property line, and that's to protect the neighbor that from you putting a tall sign right against their property line. So I would not be supportive of this because it's looks to me like it's intended to be a digital sign, pretty much the whole sign. And you can't give everybody everything they want. I think I could use this 40 square foot and could create a very attractive sign, non-digital sign that would be fit, and I don't see this doing that. So it's if the community wants to go down this road of, more and more digital signs where you're driving down your streets and you're seeing these changing, flashing messages from the hospital on north, I mean, that's where you're at, but I don't agree with it. I hope I've made myself clear. Nothing against it. It's hard to speak against a business because we want our businesses. I think I've said enough, and I think I made my point here. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Bernie. Any other members of the public have anything? All right, we'll close the public hearing. We'll move on to item number 8, which is discussion with possible action on conditional use application for Computer Professionals Unlimited of America. Talked a lot about that in the public hearing, so I don't know. I mean, it sounds like we could either simply deny the application, or we could say we would approve the conditional use based on the sign meeting the ordinance in regards to size, the message board size, that sort of thing. So those are really our two options.
I tend to move toward denying it now and getting something that's much closer to what the actual sign will be so that we can have a real clear view of whether we're fitting into the ordinance and then make our recommendation to send up from there.
Is that a
Is that a
motion?
motion?
That could be a motion. I make a motion.
All right,
Make it so, Lori.
you got that?
It's to deny the application.
This is Crystal Light second.
All right, got a motion, and a second. Any other discussion?
Can I ask a clarifying question? Because I think in this one, it's interesting. So when you talk about the structure of the sign, the support structure of the sign, would you look at that as only the masonry underneath the sign as be the structural support and everything else is? I'm just asking for like
I would,
a discretionary call on what is considered the support of the sign and what is not.
so when you're talking height, it's from ground up, right?
Yeah.
So that's the height. As far as the square footage, we always look at, so if it's got two legs or whatever, two steel posts, and then you got the sign above, the square footage is the sign above, right? This is connected to the ground, the whole thing or whatever. So all that brick cap is the structure. That I would consider everything you see right there in the square footage. Does that
So the
answer your
square footage
question?
would be the height times the width of that particular concrete structure.
Because
So that's what
Minus
I'm
width,
asking.
right,
because
but
it's
the base
truly
is
part of
only
the
an inch
design
above
of
the
the.
ground.
So
Right.
so in this particular, so again, I'm going back to the VMH one. So the VMH one had like a pedestal it sat on, then it had its sign. We didn't count the pedestal when determining 25% rule, right?
Right.
For this one, we're determining this right here is the pedestal
Correct.
and that everything else is the sign.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
Mhm.
And if,
I think,
that
oh,
2 foot-
sorry, go ahead.
I'm
Me-
sorry. 2 foot steel legs on it, we wouldn't count that as part of the
No.
actual sign unless we're looking at height.
Right.
But for square footage,
Yeah.
not.
Stephanie, did you have something?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of I also, I'm not excited about trying to move this forward tonight too, so I'd be inclined to decline it, but, part of it is I need, it's hard when we have something to look at that isn't actually what it is going to be, right? So like the best thing for me, for the applicant would be to actually have a mock-up of what their actual sign will look like. And I think it's good we're talking about this ratio because it would probably behoove them to maximize the signage portion of it, not have maybe I mean, outside of the pedestal, of course, being outside of the calculation, but if having that large of a header on the sign is going to ultimately decrease the amount of changeable space that they might be able to have. I think if it were cleaned up, it would be easier to get a handle of what they're actually asking us to approve. So.
Well, if I may too, and I could be wrong, but part of when I think of the square footage, the reason why it is what it is there's site triangles, there's sites, things like that, the narrower the lots, whatever it might be. So that's the whole structure, right? That's the whole sign. And if we didn't do it that way, you could make it 3 times that size and have a small sign in the middle of it or whatever. That's not good business, right? You're putting up walls or whatever. So that's why we measure it that way. There's some unique caveats maybe here and there or whatever, but in general, that's how we determine it.
Thanks, Chad. Anything else? All right, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. All right, now I get caught up. Item number 9, review and approval of certified survey map for Rollin Johnson.
Or you sent this as a separate file. If you want to get started, Lori.
Well, I don't have much to explain on this one, other one. I know Joe is here that he might be able to, or Anthony,
Anthony.
sorry, that would be able to explain what's actually happening here, but I do believe that there's a sale pending on this property. So through Raleigh Johnson or whatever, so they were doing a certified survey map with the proposed lot there. They have the 11.5 acre, or 11.57 acres plus, so I don't know if you wanted to come up and explain exactly what you guys are doing.
The green light's on. So I'm Anthony Wangen, 13902 Railroad Avenue, Viroqua. PW Properties, which is Joe and I, are looking to buy this property. And it was already surveyed out before from the Johnson family. This was the second phase of what they did 20 years ago, roughly, or whatever. Well, as they're getting older, they're not going to continue with the project, so they more or less offered it to us. So we are taking it to finish the last phase of their project that was started X amount of years ago. So we need to do that to get approved so that there'll be, I believe there's 16 lots slotted in there.
Well, and this is a certified survey map, so I would move that we approve it. And it's the certified survey map for Roland Johnson property.
This is David, I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thanks, Anthony. Item number 10, discussion and brief review of draft comprehensive plan and update on the planning process.
Our consultant, Kristen Fish Peterson, is online with us. A draft copy of the comprehensive plan, along with the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, and along with the historic preservation plan, was sent out to the group. The idea here was not to go through these documents in length. They're, I think, on average, Kristen, about 80 pages a piece. You only received about 5 to 6 days ahead of time to review them. So really what we wanted to do is just use this opportunity as just a brief update about where we're at. Maybe Kristen wants to walk through or just kind of highlight a few things to make note of in the plans. I don't know exactly what she has planned, but if any of you have had a chance to have a initial look through them and you have questions about what you're looking at, by all means. But this is really meant more of a touch base meeting, not a thorough review of any one plan. So Kristen, is there anything else to that? This is kind of what we discussed briefly. Is there anything else you kind of want to use as a preface to this conversation?
Sure. The draft is a rough draft. Of course, we'll design the document attractively with pictures and charts and pagination and all that stuff. But this is just a draft for review where we took the existing conditions report and supplemented, then added goals, objectives, and recommendations to each chapter. So there are some goals and recommendations in the issues and opportunities chapter, but then the rest of the other 7 chapters follow the same, or 7 chapters follow the same pattern, where we took the existing conditions report and added goals, objectives, and recommendations. So you can read the entire document so you have context of every chapter, or you can remember what you reviewed when you saw the existing conditions and just focus on the last part of each chapter. I will say that the land use chapter has gotten much more attention from us because of the zoning that you have now. A significant amount of time and energy has gone into creating the future land use map, which will then lead to, down the road, a separate approval process for a new zoning map, because of the polygon fashion that zoning was done in the past, with just big swaths of properties zoned certain things. Dana's gone literally parcel by parcel in your community to create the future land use map. So just want to say there should be opportunity to discuss each of these. We are, as Nate indicated, our plan for steps going forward. We do plan to hold a public meeting next week where we will present goals and objectives to the general public and ask for feedback, and then take that feedback and listen to what the Plan Commission has as well before we incorporate everything into the final document. So did I miss anything, Nate? Highlights?
Oh, that was an excellent example. I think just especially because this is something I ran into, is that I was really hell bent on coming out of this process with a full rezoning. And I think that's something I've even expressed to Chad and the mayor and things like that. And Kristen corrected me and saying, no, you don't do these things concurrently. You don't approve a comprehensive plan and then simultaneously rezone. You have to do one first and then you rezone based on that comprehensive plan. I think we have intentions that we want to do it somewhat shortly thereafter, but that is gonna, as Kristen pointed out, a process in and of itself. And what they've done is set us up with like this future land use map. We want to be cognizant of what we want that future zoning to be, so that when we go to create that rezoning, it is in line with this future land use map, but it is one after the other, not both at the same time. Does anybody have, again, I know you got this in a short amount of time. I think Kristen just noted this, a little bit of schedule, which we can reiterate, but does anybody have any immediate questions or thoughts or whatever it may be that we can answer while we have her available?
Hi, Kristen, this is Jan. I spent most of my time reading the historic preservation stuff, and it was really great to read the history and look in there. I'm also working on a project with a friend of mine who writes about women in history. And so I'm really heightened to the fact that, you know, often in historical documentation, it's only the male counterpart who gets the recognition, but that you had in several places mentioned women who were prominent in our history. So I enjoyed that part too. Thank you.
I'll give that credit to Studio GWA, as that was their product. So yeah, they're good at what they do in that area.
The only thing I'll do is I'll reiterate the schedule. It is on the website right now. Trina has done a good job at trying to pump it out to the public, of saying like, hey, press releases and put it on the radio, do the full shebang. But next week we have a pretty full docket. So Historic Preservation Plan at 4 in front of the Historic Preservation Commission, the Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan at 6 in front of the Park and Rec Committee. And then before council next Tuesday, we have a public input information center session about everything that we're going to try to go through and kind of walk through. It's abbreviated. What's hard for us this year is there's just so many meetings. And I think the mayor can attest to that in the last 2 weeks, he's probably attended no less than 15 hours to 16 hours worth of meetings on a variety of topics. Those don't count like the informal meetings. Those are actual, probably published public meetings. And so it's just hard to carve out sufficient time. I mean, everybody's got things going on. And so we do want to offer as many opportunities, and I think the group's got a good plan for next Tuesday. And then after that, they already have meetings set up in October with Historic Preservation and Park and Rec to run through them again. You know, and to continue to work on those drafts. So these next 30 days will be a lot of conversation about these draft plans. And again, the biggest thing is to note that I said to people that I want them to understand that it's good that they created a foundation for us to start looking at and talking into. I don't want anybody to get the sense that, hey, this is 99% done, right? Like I think we put these out there so people can really understand, like, okay, these are the first drafts. Let's react to them and not feel like, well, wait a minute, why is that in there? We didn't talk about that. Like, yes, please bring that feedback to us. Okay.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you, Kristen. I really appreciate all the work you guys are all doing. So.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Anything else on number 10? All right, we'll move on to item number 11, which is period for public comment. We have Sarah back there and Bernie. He is no. So if there's nobody online, is there nobody online? I would take a motion to adjourn. Wait.
Oh, nope, you're good. Go ahead, man.
Okay, I would take a motion to adjourn.
This is Crystal. I'll move we adjourn tonight.
Jan, I'll second.
All right, we got a motion, a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. Have a good night.